It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we move into a Friday, Gary, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Very well. Looking forward to the show ending, and then got to do a bunch of work at home, and then on the plane to go see Dad.
All right.
His birthday was yesterday, and so we're going to celebrate it tomorrow on Saturday.
All right, good.
You know, so
go do some drinking.
Dad!
Hit the bars.
Dad, let's do some shots.
Yeah.
Shots for Dad. Belly button shots?
Yeah, he's thinking inoculations. He's thinking, what?
No,
I already got mine. What? Is this pneumonia? What is this one? Yeah.
Mr. McNamara, would you like a fireball? Oh, I used to love those things.
Oh, yeah.
You got them for a penny? And
yeah, it would last forever.
Oh, wait a minute. Dad's 98. You got 5 for a penny?
You got 100 for a penny?
Okay, Dad, they do taste like fireballs.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah.
What do you know?
They do.
We're so childish. Even our whiskey, we had to make it taste like candy.
You know, it's I've often talked about this, and I may be in the minority. I'm not sure, but I never in my entire life saw my parents drunk, ever. They were never drunk.
Yeah.
You know,
I never saw my parents drunk.
They just never. It wasn't that I didn't catch them. They never. You know. I mean, as I said, the one thing that I always talk about, Dad getting the case of Ballantine beer, and it sat down there for 12 years because our next door neighbor, when it would be probably June when everybody's out there cutting the grass, maybe May or whatever, but it'd be early on, the nicest day, and my neighbor would come out with the beer for him and my father. So my father felt like he had to reciprocate because my father just wouldn't think of that. You know, he's not going to buy beer to give it to, you know, and it's just he didn't drink.
Right.
And so that case of Ballantine beer, it's like sat there. It's like, I wonder what the 12th year what the beers tasted like.
Yeah.
And the only other time I saw my father drink, and I really don't think it was drinking. What is it? The real sweet sherry wine. If there was any of that around, it went on his ice cream.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it wasn't about
dessert wine. Yeah.
It was dessert wine, and that's the only time. But yeah. So
or as I call it, cake. What are you doing? Having some cake?
Cake and ice cream.
Yeah.
So and by the way, thanks, because I had posted his picture on almost all social media, and there were so many responses. And I told my dad about it yesterday, and I said so many of our great listeners had nice words, you know, for you. And I said,
looks good.
I said, what I'm going to do is, I said, when I come back Saturday, I said, well, you know, after we go to breakfast and everything else, I'll sit and I'll read some of the remarks. And the relatives are all on there, listeners and everything else. And and so that just want to thank everybody who responded, because it's going to make his birthday special just hearing that.
Sure.
And he said, well, there are a couple people. I go, no, there's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. And he just, you know, I could just tell it made him feel really good. So,
good.
So thank you. But, wow, what a day yesterday. OJ Simpson dead, cancer, 76 years of age. Man, I'm telling you, the White House blew that big time. They can't get anything right.
Well, you know, I told you in the pre-show meeting, only KJP could make the story about the death of O.J. Simpson, not really the death of O.J. Simpson. You know, because I was like, you know, we always do this, and we shouldn't. You and I often have the same reaction to stories. It's like, yeah, that's not what she really said, right? Because I saw the story, and it was like, it started breaking. It started hitting, and I thought, well, there you go. That's this White House. Change the nature of the story almost immediately. It wasn't long after the story broke that he died, and boom. Oh, wow. Yeah, way to bungle it.
Yeah, that was bad. I go back to, there's so many things that people were talking about, yesterday, and the memes are all over the place, and the parody websites were having a blast.
The people at the Babylon Bee were on it within minutes.
It was it was a very sad time. Just what happened there, and everybody knows I grew up a Buffalo Bill fan.
Mm-hmm.
The Buffalo Bills are what I grew up with as a kid, and so OJ Simpson was, in my teenage years, he was a football hero to me, and so I had just finished. I was this would have been June of '94. I was working at our great affiliate, WLS, fill-in part-time. But I was living still in Rockford, Illinois, and I was doing a news television panel show that Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because that day, before the chase and before I did the TV show, I had signed my contract to go to the radio station in Buffalo to start there in a month. So my first couple of months on the air was OJ Simpson.
Yeah.
Because I took it 2 weeks later. I'm on the radio, and remember how everything. Do you remember there were like OJ shows?
Oh yeah,
people would do it. I mean, it was like all OJ all the time.
Well, I mean, the coverage of all of it when you finally got to the legal setting, that's where really the rise of Greta Van Susteren happened.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely you're right. Yeah, and so we were doing the we had known that his ex-wife was killed in Ron Goldman. That was out there,
right? And
it was part of the discussion, among other things, like who, whatever. So we're done taping of it, and I get in my car, turn on the radio, and the announcement that O.J. Simpson is a suspect comes on as I get in my vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I go back to my apartment, and I call my dad. We must have been on the phone for 3 hours, but really didn't say much. At times, just sitting down. There were no cell phones at the time, so you actually paid for long distance, and it was just like wow. We just couldn't believe it. The Bronco chase happening, and everything else, and the public knows OJ did it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see the Dana Carvey thing on what it would take to frame OJ?
Oh yeah.
That's a funny. And that came out probably a few years after, and it was really, it was hilarious.
Well, I remember my dad saying it. My dad is a seasoned investigator and taught law enforcement and criminal investigation. He spent decades in law enforcement in the military. And he said, look, one of the things you have to do in investigating something, you have to consider all possibilities, including in this case, and of course he wasn't investigating it, he wasn't on site, but he said, including the idea that someone may have planted the glove, but he was also guilty. In other words, that they moved a piece of evidence or they did something. Manipulating evidence isn't out of the question. When humans are involved, we already know having hindsight of the bungled chain of custody of the evidence. That was a big deal. That's what I believe through the case. But there, he said, my dad said, you have to consider all those possibilities that they could have all essentially happened. He wouldn't have been framed. In other words, if he were guilty, but hey, let's move this over here to make sure that we've got a solid case or something like that. He said, those are all possibilities you have to look at because it seemed to be one or the other for a while. It was, was he framed? Was he? Because that's what the entire legal thing was. With Furman and all that. And then time gave us perspective.
Well, time and the amount of blood and DNA that existed.
Well, I mean, time after the case,
besides the glove.
after his legal case,
right?
Gave us perspective. People who still were saying, I don't think he did it. And then years later,
Well,
he did it, but
yeah. I think one of the best articles written yesterday was Adam Coleman, who is a black conservative writer of what came out of this. Now, I believe it would have happened anyway, but he wrote a column in the New York Post, OJ Simpson's terrible legacy is the shameless way he weaponized race. He said there are a few men who reached the summit of fame, economic prosperity, and respect, only to lose their footing and fall as far as OJ. The juice once personified the American dream. Then he was consumed by evil and became an American tragedy. Though through his disregard for human life and abundance of pride, his life represents a symbolic lesson on how the mighty can fall when they believe they are the almighty. But it wasn't just the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman that exposed Simpson's malevolence. It was that a man who proclaimed to want to be judged by the content of his character and had been during his Hall of Fame career and successful transition to action and advertising made the trial all about the color of his skin. Simpson and his defense team exploited America's racial wound, peeled off the fresh scab of the Rodney King debacle, and invited press vampires to endlessly feed off our bleeding gash. For months, American media implored us to digest a narrative about our inability to heal as a nation. Johnny Cochran and others made Simpson a martyr for a racial cause he never cared about before. The trial of the century wasn't about discovering the truth surrounding the death or innocent people or even proving Simpson's innocence. It was about reigniting a racial flame that we refused to let completely burn out. Many Americans saw their narrative, bias, and entertainment through the actions occurring in the courtroom, but ignored the pain, sorrow, and grieving of the Brown and Goldman family. There is no righteousness found in letting injustice occur to prove a point. And he goes on there, but it was just I believe it would have happened anyway. We were heading on that path. Identity politics had started, I think, the modern identity politics movement a few years before with, as the quote, the high-tech lynching, end of quote, of Clarence Thomas. And also, and so you saw it at that point. Then conservative talk show hosts started coming around, and that's when the Democrats and the left really started demonizing anything that didn't fit into a particular category. Yeah. And so it was going to happen anyway. I believe the OJ Simpson trial accelerated race baiting in America.
I think that was part of it. It's interesting. The Washington Post points out that they and ABC News did the poll in 97, and it was in 97. 31% of black Americans said that they were definitely or probably sure of Simpson's guilt. By 2015, that share had risen to 57%, the majority. And I wonder, okay, if you took the same poll in 2024, but if you take the poll, qualifying the respondents is important because how many people actually know the case now? You have to be a little bit older to remember the case or have studied it, and gone back and studied it. So you have to be qualified to be a respondent one way or the other. And I wonder what the sentiment would be if they took that poll. I wonder what the sentiment would be after his death, if it changes things. Because the thing is that, we've gotten into latching on to like one thing and not letting go. Now, it really is this, tribalism one way or the other on either ideas or, the right or the left or whatever it is. And then you latch onto it and you can't let it go, till the end. Well, the fact of the matter is that law enforcement doesn't work that way. Cases don't work that way. And so, but the sentiment, the perception of what people think, look, to me, the evidence was overwhelming. But if you don't go through the procedures of maintaining the integrity of the crime scene, the chain of evidence, and all of that, and demonstrating that, you can't make the case.
There was still enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, even with all that.
I think so, but the problem, that was the biggest problem for prosecution.
Oh, yeah, I'll agree with that. Yes.
That was
yes.
what threw the case.
Yes.
So that was the problem.
I didn't think the prosecution was the greatest.
Well,
If
you because you can't be on sure footing unless you've built a strong case.
Well, they built a strong case.
But the biggest problem they had was chain of custody of evidence.
It doesn't make a difference because there were so many other blood
I think it does.
that was his blood. I mean, it was a slam dunk.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that as a juror. But the problem is that chain of custody problem is what broke their case.
Partly. I think race also did.
Yeah, I would disagree on that.
Yeah.
I would say it was I think it was bungled. I really do.
I think it was partly bungled, but not enough at all to say beyond a reason that it was beyond a reasonable doubt.
For me,
and,
it isn't.
And absolutely race was a part of it. To deny that race was a part of it.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't.
You just said it wasn't.
No, I'm not. I didn't say it wasn't. I was saying the biggest failure was the bungling of the case in the chain of custody.
I said it was both.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but race.
All right.
But race.
I guess we can move on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Time to go to a break.
Yeah. I'm not going to rehash. I'm not going to go back 30 years ago. That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Well, we both agree on guilty.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. Guilty of double murder.
Right.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle to help avoid downtime and keep your rig rolling through to next winter. Spring temperature swings can cause your tire pressure to fluctuate. Start your spring maintenance routine by checking your tire pressure and make sure your tires are properly inflated based on the load you're hauling. Underinflated tires cause premature wear, reduced fuel economy, and premature tire failures. Take care of your tires now before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I've got to find the timeline on this one.
All right.
Because as you saw yesterday, I mean, it was the RNC and Trump came out extremely strong on debating Biden. Now, I don't know if that came first or the story from the press yesterday from the pool reporter that the White House held most of the press in the lower hallway of the East Wing, even as a meeting yesterday got underway in the White House. As a result, your pooler and most of the American and Philippine reporters were not taken into the East Room until after the president had concluded speaking. So now they don't want reporters in the room when he's speaking because they'll scream questions at him and he turns around and walks away. So now the press doesn't come in. Is this a new policy? The press isn't going. And so I don't know if that story came out first and then the Trump campaign and Trump responded, or Trump went after him and the RNC went after him for not wanting to debate. And Trump was saying anywhere, anytime. And then this story came out. Because if that's the case, what are they going to do when it comes to campaigning? If they won't allow the media, if they're so upset because when Biden speaks, he turns around and walks away and won't take any questions, and they feel that...
Or he goes off script.
Or
either one. You know, I'm not supposed to answer questions. Hey, what's your question? Or whatever. The problem is he's too unpredictable, and it's never a good day when the press is in the room.
More listeners not now than now, depending on when now is. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. As Biden yesterday, he was coming out of someplace. He had looked like he had a soda in his hand, and he was asked the question whether he would, that Donald Trump said he'll debate him, anywhere, anytime, and immediately. And he was like, "What? Well, if I was him, I'd want to debate me too." It was like,
what does that even mean?
You and I were talking about. They go, what did that mean? Well, that's the point.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're. Well, we know he wants to debate you because he said it.
Because he thinks he can win the debate.
Yeah. And if I were him, I'd want to debate me too. I'm like, what?
If I were him, I'd run against me too.
See, the thing you do as a politician would be, I've been asking to debate Trump this entire time, if you truly wanted to debate.
Yeah. It's go time, cupcake.
Yeah. I can't believe he would want to debate me because I'll smoke him, right?
Right.
That's what you should say as a politician.
Yeah, I'm shocked he wants to debate me.
Yeah.
He's
exactly.
a lightweight. He's going to get in the ring with me? Are you kidding me?
But it was almost repeating the question.
Yeah.
You're answering the question with the same message the question was asking you.
Then he was trailing out of the room and said, I mean, come on, did you see the inflation numbers yesterday? Stop talking.
Well, but it didn't matter. On inflation, he came out yesterday and said that inflation was already bad when he took office.
Yeah. Right.
Blaming inflation on Trump.
Yeah.
And then Karine Jean-Pierre was confronted with that at the press briefing yesterday and just went into talking about, never addressed the question, just went into how hard he's fighting inflation.
All right.
Wow. It's going to be a zoo. It's going to be a zoo, isn't it? It's going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's.
Let's enjoy April.
I don't know what you do to control it because he has to campaign. You can't campaign from the basement. Actually, Trump could get away with campaigning from the basement this time, more so than Biden. Biden doesn't want to be there. And look, they're putting him out there almost in a ribbon cutting kind of thing. I saw a story yesterday. I didn't read the whole thing because I was laughing so hard. I had to put my phone down. And the gist of it was with young voters, instead of making more, live appearances, doing the actual campaigning, stumping, old-fashioned stumping with younger crowds, it's going to be about content, virtual campaigning, creating content, creating viral moments, taking selfies. And it had this picture of him next to some young people, and he was posing for a selfie or something. It's like, you're not going to change. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to change the perception of him. And how do you know those people taking selfies with him aren't mocking him?
And we had played part of it yesterday, MSNBC talking to undecided voters, or independent voters, I guess would be, not undecided, independent voters.
Right.
And I had watched the entire segment on it and seen previous questions, and the vast majority of the 8 people on that panel that they interviewed voters, they all leaned Democrat.
Right.
When the economy came up, as we had played the audio cut, the passion against what Biden was doing was something I have never seen. I've never seen it in my political career. I mean, observing the politicians, I've never seen such anger, from liberal-leaning independents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Against the candidate that they probably preferred, the majority of them.
Yeah.
Or the party that they used to prefer. And you and I have talked about that all of this, you cannot in a political party continue to divide and harm the country. And by the way, again, to the Republican Party, you should be running ads every single day. And Trump should be out there every single day, and every Republican running should be out there every single day saying what we have been promoting for the last couple of years. The Democrats can't and won't solve the problems of this country because they created the problems. And you can't solve the problem when your entire platform, your party's platform, is to hurt the country.
Mm-hmm.
They need to promote that day in and day out. I have been seeing lately, and again, I admit it's anecdotal, but so many people questioning out there, why are they doing stuff that hurts the country? Why are they actually doing things that hurt the country? And what I got out of that panel on MSNBC, and of course, it was Mark Halperin doing the panel, so he's as far left as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But the anger, to me, was based on the fact that they believe that Biden, through his policies, has hurt the economy. It's not that he can't solve the problem of, a ebb and flow economy that goes up and down, and organically it's down right now, and what you do to bring it back up.
Right.
It's the anger that you created this mess. And that's when you look at American politics today, the last president that was viewed economically as hurting things, and even though they believed he was a nice guy, most people know that Biden's not a nice guy. And that was Jimmy Carter. And so and there was anger back then, and you saw what happened in that election. Now, is Trump stronger than Reagan was at that point? Probably an unfair analysis because it was a different time.
Well, yeah,
different time and different candidates. It's
and
unfair
information
to make
was absorbed differently, and was available. Now is available on a much wider scale. So, yeah.
Oh, I do have I'm going to play the audio cut of Biden coming out, wherever's coming out of yesterday, with looks like a soft drink in his hand or a slushie or who knows. But here's when the question is being asked to him. About Trump says he's ready to debate you right now. Do you accept? Here we go.
Donald Trump is ready to debate you right now. Do you accept?
Because I got on radio. What did you debate you immediately?
Immediately?
Yes.
Will you debate him?
If I were him, I'd want to debate me too.
If I were him, if I were him, I'd want to debate me too.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And did you hear it, though? I just heard it when I just played it right there on my headphone.
Right.
They asked the question, and you heard his handlers, that's enough, without him even answering the question.
Right. Well, the best move, the only move here for the Trump campaign, for Trump, was anytime, any place, just as he did it. Because the moment you say, look, we don't believe the debates are fair. If we wanted to get into the whole thing of picking moderators and all of that, the parties picking moderators and who was going to do all of that and how that would be organized. You start getting into that, then you hand the Biden campaign a gift. The guy doesn't want to even debate me. His party doesn't want him to debate me. The only play is anytime, anywhere. And for Trump, it's going. If they were to get on a debate stage, I don't think that's going to happen. But if they were to get on a debate stage, it's going to be pretty simple. The tactic should be simple. You hand him as much time as he wants. I yield my time. Let Biden talk.
In all of American politics, that advice has never been given.
Ever
been given.
Ever.
Trump should sit there after Biden can't answer the question. All right, Mr. Trump. No.
No, I give my time.
I yield my time.
Let him finish.
Joe, can you explain how these things work, or can't you?
Could you finish? You want to finish your thought there? Go ahead.
And also saying these debates need to be done earlier. Not just everybody who goes in to vote should see us debate. That's the messaging that you want.
Yeah.
And they really can't respond to it. I mean, what's the response when he's out there every day saying, I'll debate you anywhere, anytime, but these things need to be done earlier, and we need to have a lot more debates earlier before people actually, to have debates when you've got 30% of the nation has voted already. No.
Right.
And call them on it, because there isn't anything wrong with that messaging. There's nothing wrong with Trump messaging, I will debate you anywhere, anytime, and I want the debates earlier. What's the argument back? Well, no, because Trump is a racist and we don't debate racists. When is that coming out?
Well,
when is that going to be the response?
I was waiting for that actually yesterday. It's because we've been saying it could be one of their only plays. We've been saying that for a while. I am not going to give him the honor. I'm not going to share the stage with this guy. This guy, you heard Spartacus the other day. I mean,
I'm assuming you're referring to Cory Booker?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is their only game. Trump has destroyed America, blah, 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 blah. I will not dignify any of his actions, blah, 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 blah. That's the only thing they got.
But everybody knows that if you believe you have the upper hand, you debate.
Yeah.
People aren't stupid.
Right. If you have conviction, you should never be afraid of debating. And tell me what Joe Biden actually believes.
We did debating in school. I wonder what debating is now like in the modern woke school.
Oh, there's none of that.
I just started thinking of that now. It's like, what's that got to be like?
Well, it's funny because Coach Valdez, in his class, he was also a teacher, in Memorial Elementary in Del Rio, Texas. And the first debate we ever had. All right. Boys versus girls. You could never do this, ever, today. Who's better and why?
No way.
Yep. And Susan Valdez, no relation to Coach Valdez,
wow,
stood up and ended the debate. I mean, it was over. I seem to remember it was time to go anyway, when she said that the only thing that boys can do better than girls is stand up to pee. And she said it pretty loudly, and it echoed down the halls of Memorial Elementary School, home of the Memorial Elementary Lobos. And that's when Coach Valdez said, all right.
Well, I can see that debate being held today.
Yeah.
Who's better, boys or girls? All right, let's go to the liberal feminists.
They're going to say boys.
Boys.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Men are superior to women. Men, we believe that feminism now is men defining what a woman is.
Right. Take that, Susan
Right.
Valdez.
We don't. No, the correct answer would have been, the woke answer, I don't know because I can't tell you what a woman is.
We're not going to judge what gender you are.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We'll take a look at some of the wholesale inflation numbers coming up. I'm looking at just this headline here. Our modern outbreak of idiocy, talking about using Sheila Jackson Lee's comments the other day, but extrapolating it out from that. And we had said that the other day, too, the idiots that lead us that are completely clueless about how the world, how business, how industry runs.
Yeah.
They're just completely clueless. No idea about science. They're just, we elect people that are complete idiots.
Yeah.
We really, really do.
Yeah.
And as I said, when I was younger, I used to respect all of them and think they were something special. As you get older, you realize a lot of these people are just idiots. And we'll get to that coming up.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi. Thank you for being here. Another day. Made it to Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody.
All right. True story. Happened to me last night.
All right.
So everybody knows I sleep 2 shifts. I go home and I sleep, and then later on in the afternoon I sleep again. Go to sleep around 6 o'clock. So I'm getting ready to go to sleep last night, and as I'm getting ready to go to sleep, in fact, I actually went into bed and went, I'm a little hungry, but I don't want to eat a lot. So I went out and said to the kitchen and went, okay, what's in the refrigerator? I opened it up and I went, oh, okay. I'm just going to have a small can of V8. Throw that down and I'll be fine. Well, it was tightly wrapped in the package. So I took a scissors out to cut the plastic that was holding everything together, punctured one of the cans that exploded.
Pressure.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Hands under pressure.
Exploded right now. I was in bed. I just had boxer shorts on. Don't do any thinking about what that might look like.
I'm still wondering why you even told us.
Because the vegetable juice just exploded all onto my face, my chest, and everything. And
now it's a crime scene.
And
you started screaming, "I'm not going to jail for this."
So I went in the bathroom. I look in the mirror. It looked like, I looked like a horror movie. It looked like I'd been shot and stabbed. There was just...
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't as good as my kaboom a couple of years ago. Remember that time when I came in to work and had to tell you about the kaboom? And that's when I was, my hair was longer at the time. And so I'd wash it and everything else. It's like, okay, time to use some hairspray on it, just a little bit of hairspray. And it was dark in there, and I took, the bathroom cleaner kaboom. I wasn't even paying attention. Just grabbed it. All of a sudden, look, and my hair is purple.
Looked fabulous.
So I had to go back in the shower, but my hair had no mildew or bathroom scum afterwards. It was, yeah.
You wash that scum right out of your
hair.
Wash
the scum right out of it. Oh, when you wake up. Have you ever woken up when you get to work, you've got 2 different pairs of socks on? That happened to me.
I've been getting dressed in the dark for 27 years, yeah. I don't even know if I'm wearing socks right now. Frankly, it's none of my business.
Luckily, nobody's around and nobody cares here. It's we all work over.
I was bragging to my wife that I bought new socks the other day. She brought it right back down to earth. Whoever sees them.
That's true.
My answer? TSA and everybody in line behind me at the airport. It's actually the reason I bought them. I thought, okay, I've been doing a lot of projects and some of my socks, I could spend the 5 cents or 2 cents or 1 cent on bleach and run them through, and, clean them. I mean, I do wash them, but they were stained with mud. I thought, nah, I'm going to splurge. And I bought new socks. It's the reason I have my entire closet. One entire row is nothing but black T-shirts. Another row is jeans. And then I've got one drawer that's all the same. It's the same socks. I don't have to make them. I just need to make sure that I have two, at least one.
So nobody's ever called you a fancy dresser?
No.
Okay.
No. Make it simple.
Is the black T-shirt, does it have anything to do with your early rebellion of authority as a teenager?
No.
Okay,
No, but my tattoo does, and I can't tell you what it's a tattoo of.
Kamala Harris?
No. Nope. Yeah, it's that.
You don't have a tattoo.
No, I don't. But if I did, it would be evil. Yeah, I keep it simple, and it's the only reason, because I get dressed in the dark.
Now, could you do that if you worked during the day? Or would you have to be more?
Well, it depends on what my job would be.
Well, this.
Oh, I wouldn't want to do this during the day. That'd be horrible. People in the building? No, I'd have some light. I could actually choose different colors and different styles. Imagine that. Life would be grand.
Well, here we go. Tax day around the corner.
Oh, crap.
In fact, it would be Monday, correct?
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, it is.
Well, let's go through some statistics.
All right.
The average American pays $524,625 in taxes in their lifetime, according to the new study.
Well, I'm knocking that out pretty quick.
No. The report also ranks states on lifetime tax costs. If you live in the Northeast, you may want to sit down for this. This is from USA Today. New Jersey residents pay $987,000. I'm rounding it off, but $987,000 in lifetime taxes. Washington, D.C. comes in second with a lifetime tax burden of $884,000. Connecticut and Massachusetts are third and fourth, $855,000 and $816,000. The lowest tax state, West Virginia, with a lifetime cost of $358,000. Wow. The report comes from the personal finance site Self Financial, based on research collected in January and February of this year. It considers taxes on income, homes, cars, clothing, food, drink, entertainment, and personal care, drawing from tax data and several research sources, including the American Community Survey, the Federal Consumer Expenditure Survey, and Zillow. For a lifetime tax figure, $524,000 works out to about one-third of the average American's lifetime earnings, which add up roughly to $1.5 million. All right, if you're taking the average on it, I don't know if that's a right way to look at it, though. And I say that because the tax system is so skewed for larger earners that if you take averages, it doesn't give you the true picture.
Well, the average then puts everybody in one bracket.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
You're not in a bracket, yeah. So I look at this and go,
yeah, no, that doesn't make sense at all.
No, it doesn't, because if you have 50% of younger not younger workers, but of the lower income workers, they hardly pay anything in federal tax.
Right.
And so because it's so and across the board, federal state tax, They pay very, very little. We know that. We know that roughly, what was it, in 2021, the last year it's available, what was it, 45? The top 1% pay 45% of the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do this fairly, you'd have to, or more fairly, you'd have to go to a particular tax bracket.
Yeah.
If you went, if you sat there and went, okay, if you make 10 million plus, and then 5 million, and then get down to $1 million, and then all the way down, that might be more accurate if you're going to try to average that out.
Right.
But wow, didn't take us long to find the flaw in that one, did it?
Yeah.
The COVID-19 pandemic allowed many workers to live far from employers. Millions of Americans have migrated from state to state in the pandemic years, untethered, by their jobs. Let me see. New Jersey, the state with the highest taxes, lost the most residents to other states in 2023. The 5 other high-tax states, California, Illinois, Kansas, Massachusetts, and New York, rank in the top 8 for outbound migration in the 2023 studies. Americans moved to several low-tax states in 2023, including Alabama, Arkansas, New Mexico, North and South Carolina, South Dakota, West Virginia, and I would include in that Florida and Texas. If you look at the outflow from California, for example, a state ranked 9th for lifetime taxes in the self-financial report. California never used to have an outflow. One earmark of low-tax states is the absence of a state income tax. 9 states don't have one. Alaska, Florida. I'm using this for future reference in case I decide to move.
Right.
Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of friends who have moved from California to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
They were absolutely shocked, at how low the taxes were.
Right.
It blew them away.
Yeah.
I just wonder where Texas ends up now with the fact that, they've lowered property tax. How that's going to reflect in the future years. Because Texas isn't one of the top 10 lowest states.
Right.
They're at the lower end, but they're not, they're not the lowest.
I think that's part of the big push behind lowering property taxes, and from what I understand, that's not over. The GOP in Texas wants to further lower the tax. Well, the GOP in Texas officially, the Republican Party in Texas wants to do away with property taxes. So, but that's. I don't know that you're going to get to that point in our lifetime, but they're working on it.
Well,
it's an improvement.
I think it should have been better news, or not better news, bigger news with the property tax cut that everybody got last year in the state of Texas.
Right. I think the effect of it was there was a problem with the effect of it, especially in larger areas like ours. I think, and I'd have to look at the numbers to see if this is the case. Just a theory that the increase in property values, you still see that your property values are going up. If you look at your rate, if you look at what you're paying, I'm not even in the greatest exemption category, but my property taxes were cut several $100s, and which I thought was great. But I wonder how many people are paying close enough attention to see that versus the rise in the tax assessments of everyone's property. That would be the question. Are you looking at tax rate, or are you looking at what you're paying overall?
Well, I pay attention to it, but when you look from year to year, as I did last year, now I'm in I get other deductions because I'm older, because I passed 65.
You get the
it's compression.
Freezing and now tax compression.
Tax compression, you called it, where I believe I get a reduction in taxes from the state level.
Yeah, right.
Every year, but I paid, because I just finished my taxes and, looking at, okay, what can I possibly deduct? And I paid just under $2,000 less in property taxes last year than I did for 2022. And nothing like that has ever happened to me in any state. I don't remember. We've had okay, we're going to have a temporary tax tax holiday or we're going to give you, but any of those stimulus checks, I never got any of those to begin with.
Right. Right.
So you didn't either.
Mm-mm.
Remember the stimulus. So when you look at it, because you look at this and say, okay, this is permanent.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's
Right.
permanent. You understand what I mean.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen. But I just never experienced any of that, and I wonder how that ripple effect, because people pay attention to what they have to pay at the end of the year.
Well, that's it. Well, if you are paying attention, it's I think too in the wake of such massive inflation, so the cost of everything else, right? I think long term, I think it will be a bigger story because the comparison is going to be made more and more and more. Texas versus other states, and also Texas versus what Texas did in the past on property taxes when you get down to that specific issue. And I think it will be interesting to see what the legislature does next on that, because the GOP is hell-bent on that in Texas, and they would love to do away with property taxes altogether. I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetime, but I would love them to keep trying. And so far, they've made pretty good ground.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
The IFTA tax program redistributes tax revenue to states based on your actual miles run. Thus, the truly cheapest fuel can only be found if you subtract federal and state taxes and state surcharges from the pump price to compare. The strategy means that you buy without regard for whether you are paying more at the pump in taxes. IFTA also considers state surcharges, which complicates the fuel buying strategy. Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia have per gallon surcharges. Connecticut, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon have per mile surcharges. While some owner-operators buy only enough fuel to get through surcharge states, this practice can backfire, depending on the actual cost of the fuel in each state. When comparing fuel prices, always remember, pump pride minus taxes equals the real fuel cost. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I got my taxes done on, was it Monday, Tuesday this week? So
Yeah, got all mine done.
I was finally got that out of the way. Owed more than I thought I did. So.
I was shocked at how many children I adopted last year. I'd lost count, apparently. I needed a calculator for that one.
I thought one of the most interesting things, because this is the time of the year where we always talk about it, the whole fair share. The rich need to pay their fair share, and we've always asked, well, what's their fair share? And nobody could ever identify what it is. And then that polling that came out that showed over 33% of Democrats believe that the top 1% only pay 1% in their taxes.
Right.
And the vast majority of Americans way underestimate what the rich pay in taxes.
Right. Yeah.
And when it comes to, what they believe the top rate should be, it's less than the top rate is. The vast majority of people believe that the top tax rate should be 30% or under, and it's currently 37%.
Right.
So it's interesting that there's a complete disconnect between reality and what the American people believe.
And that's how you get things done politically. Gruber said it. Stupid American voter. If you're ignorant on something, it's because you choose to be ignorant. On something like that, you choose to be ignorant. You can find the answers right there in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, because it comes out every single year.
Easy to find.
And it comes from the federal government.
Right.
It comes from the IRS.
Right.
Who actually pays taxes.
Right.
Those numbers exist out there, and so you know who pays the income tax.
Right.
What I found interesting yesterday was the analysis that because of the increase, because of assessments in property outside of Texas, we were talking about Texas, but outside of Texas, is a driver to inflation.
Right.
And that tax increases, future tax increases, and the tax increases people have seen this year in states, whatever, is something that's going to increase inflation.
Yeah.
And that's completely from government.
All the pressure that's built, all of this, by the way, is a choice. Overspending and all of it. Yet, so far, we haven't changed our minds.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Mayorkis was before the Senate and House this week.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the House sometime next week are supposed to walk over the impeachment papers to the Senate, and it's expected that Schumer will try to kill everything within a day and actually not have a trial. The Democrats are scared to death to have a trial for Mayorkis. As we have stated before, the biggest problem politically for Mayorkis, and it was often said before, remember, impeachment is a political process, but the biggest political problem here is the fact that Mayorkis has been on record so many times saying that the border is secure. And you just have to have the figures, have the video of the border, and you run that during a campaign season, and it's deadly for the president politically. And I want to play this audio because this is John Kennedy going back and forth with Mayorkis about Senator Kennedy bringing up about illegal immigrants affecting redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the census counts the total for redistricting. Which is, also, how many electoral votes you get as a state.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brings that up. And this gets interesting, but it again highlights the problem that they have with Mayorkis.
Isn't it true, Mr. Secretary, that the number of illegal immigrants that you and President Biden have allowed into our country counts for allocating electoral votes?
Same answer.
Okay. You don't know?
I don't understand your question.
Never crossed your mind?
The notion, Senator, that we intend to allow illegal immigration is nothing short of preposterous.
So you do understand my question?
And if I may, it is disrespectful to the extraordinarily hard work that we perform, and far more importantly, that the personnel in the Department of Homeland Security and across this administration perform to stem illegal immigration, build lawful, safe, and orderly pathways, and invest in a working system. And we only wish that bipartisan legislation, about which I have not heard a critical term,
Mr. Secretary, you're using up my time. You do this every single time. You do this every single time. And it's a fact, and you know it, and I know it, that the more people you allow into our country illegally, the more people are counted for reapportionment. And the more people that you allow into our country illegally, the more people are counted for allocating electoral votes. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, but that's a fact. And you know that. And you've done nothing. for 4 years. Nada. Zero.
Absolutely false.
Zilch. And in fact, the only people I know in this country who are better off today than they were 4 years ago are illegal immigrants. And that's as a result of your policy. I don't hate you for it. I don't hate anyone, but that's why you've been impeached.
You know, the interesting thing, that was the first time I saw Mayorkis get upset. You should see, because the camera's on him as Kennedy was speaking, and he was just, you could tell.
Yeah, he was livid.
He was visibly just livid because he does. And well, the one thing is, too, Kennedy caught him, where he goes, I don't understand the question, then went on to explain, and his explanation showed he didn't understand. He did understand the question. He wouldn't answer it saying, I didn't understand the question, then goes on to let everybody know, I understood the question, and Kennedy threw in. He goes, so you know the question. You understand the question. And, you know, the evading, the gaslighting from Mayorkis, this is the problem. This is why Democrats don't want anything close to a Senate trial on this. They will do everything. Now, you've got Senate Republicans that have come in and said, we're not going to move anything through the Senate if you do this, because you're supposed to let this process go through. Part of the Constitution, you're supposed to let it go through. If they don't, either way, the Democrats lose, but I think it's what do they view as being the lesser of two evils? Do they just shut it down completely and give the Republicans, the win, saying, the win, because everyone knows Biden caused what's going on at the border. Mm-hmm. And the Republicans first want a trial because they believe that politically it just will destroy. The whole thing is, it doesn't matter whether he's removed from his office or not. It's the fact that after all the evidence is presented, it's just more pounding. There is no argument from the Democrats for what's going on at the border. They don't have any.
Yeah.
And Republicans and the legal people that the Republicans would have for the impeachment would absolutely just destroy the administration on it. And the last thing they want is that Senate Democrats have to vote whether to get rid of Mayorkis or not. If they don't get rid of him, that's a problem. If they do get rid of him, which means you would need to get a significant portion of Democrat votes, that's devastating for the president, because it proves the entire point that all this was calculated by the president. So the Democrats really don't have many options. All of them are bad. They're trying to find the one that I believe is least bad.
Well, this is why, Schumer wants to put this thing to bed and put it behind him as soon as possible. But the fact of the matter is, even that is going to be damage. That's damage. Because why would you want that? If you believe Mayorkis is doing a good job, did not lie before Congress, because you have to then repeat the same words he did, that the border is secure. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to walk his walk as a Democrat. Now go back to your state and tell them, Schumer in New York, Schumer. And these are the problems that, because you vote against it, then you're telling your constituents nothing is wrong with the border.
Right.
He was fine. He didn't lie about it. The border's secure. You got to go back to your state and tell them that, Democrats. And that's the problem. This is, and it doesn't matter how you handle this. There's no way this falls and lands softly. It's not going to happen.
There's not, as I said, there's not a positive, and the Republicans are attempting, I believe, to communicate with the Mayorkis impeachment, the number one concern of the American public, and present it to them in an impeachment trial that could last weeks and or months. Mm-hmm. Again, sending impressions, and that's what you want to do in any political campaign. the more impressions you put on something. Well, you've got the number one issue there. The number one issue is this, and the number two issue is inflation. But the immigration, you just pound that day in and day out that this is a guy. Mayorkis does not look good when he testifies. No. You and that's why the American public doesn't buy into it, and that's why the American public views that the border, because we say immigration, it's not really immigration, it's the border. Mm-hmm. They realize that this is a calculated decision. They've already come, the majority of Americans have already come to that decision. This was a calculated decision by it. There's nothing the Democrats could do in a trial to prove that isn't the case. And the Republicans have a tremendous amount of ammunition. And as we have stated, whether it's this impeachment and removal from office, whether he's removed or not, is not the goal. It's to throw those negative impressions that the Democrats caused this, that the president caused this, that his handpicked person caused this, that they want to put before the American public, just like we never believed that impeachment and removal from office of Joe Biden with the impeachment inquiry was the goal. But Republicans never said it was the goal. Democrats said it was the goal. Mm-hmm. We always believed it was about just, again, drip, drip, drip of showing the American public every single day. Because, look, you can't present to any independent the fact that money went to Biden. And we know money went to Biden from China.
Right.
We know it. I mean, the figures are there. They can't win that one.
No.
They can't win it.
Nope.
You can't win that with the American independent. Now, you can win it with the Democrat who doesn't care that the Biden family has enriched themselves through influence peddling over the last 20 years. You're not going to, they don't care. It's just we want the Democrats in no matter what, but you will affect independents, and that's the goal.
And I wonder what the question is in terms of how many Democrats. Look, how many, there's going to be the hardcore left, and they're not going to budge. But how many Democrats that voted for Biden and aren't going to vote for Biden this time and are looking at his party saying, you guys are too radical, it's over. And whether they stay home or vote for Trump or vote for RFK Jr., however it plays out, it's not a vote for you.
Well, when you see, and we've talked a lot about Barry Weiss and Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi, you could add to there Yuri Berliner, who wrote the column, works for National Public Radio, that we read the other day for 25 years and talked about the bias there. These are all people you have to look at. These are smart people who have voted Democrat for years.
Yeah.
Looking at what's going on and going, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And if they're saying it, and you didn't see this before the 2020 election or the 2016 election, and you look at it and you see the polls, for example, I saw another poll saying black men are abandoning Biden. Mm-hmm. And you look at it and you go, okay, eventually, when you're in a party that the goal is to produce victims and oppressors, and you keep dividing people against one another, you're going to eventually fail as a political party because you have to find the issues to unite people around, not issues to divide people. And identity politics divides people.
Right. What brings the party together?
Right.
What brings it? If you're talking about, Joe the Uniter, oh my gosh, that's laughable to anybody. Think about that. He can bring people together. You're delusional if you're still saying that.
The danger for the Democrats right now is the fact that the people believe, and I don't see anything that can turn the tide for them. They may still vote for Biden. You never know, but they know. The public knows that, and that's why the Republicans need to pound it over and over again. The Democrats and Joe Biden will not and cannot fix the problem and the problems we have here, and that's because they caused them.
Mm-hmm.
Just electing us, we won't cause those problems, and we'll enact legislation that will actually help you.
Right.
That's a very powerful message right now that the Republicans should be using and pounding constantly because it's already in the minds of the American public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All you're doing is throwing an impression at them every time you say that they already have in their head.
Yep, acknowledge.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. And by the way, you take that with Mayorkis and you combine it with the FBI director talking about that at this time right now, the threats that we face as Americans are the greatest it's ever been. And you take the combination of that with the FBI director saying on one hand and what Mayorkis and Biden are doing on the other hand, and you say, well, excuse me. So what you're telling me is right now there are more terrorist groups and more terrorist groups intent on attacking the United States of America, and here's what's going on at our border.
American safety has been compromised like never before in terms of the southern border, both with terrorists and the cartels, and then just any of the unknowns of that may be individual criminals coming from other countries that believe they're going to get away with it here because they've been told they can get away with it here. And we've seen those cases play out. That's why you secure your border and you vet everyone, but not this president. You open the border and invite everyone.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's do some classic rock talk radio.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk some Bob Seger, some Led Zeppelin. Got some Pink Floyd discussions on the way.
Well, you and I just thought it was appropriate to play this after a couple of stories came out yesterday. Energy prices soar almost 30% under Biden, 13 times faster than the previous 7 years. Energy prices, particularly the cost of electricity. I'm reading this from the New York Post, but it's actually a story from the Wall Street Journal. The cost of electricity have skyrocketed since President Biden took office, outpacing inflation by 50%. Since January of 21, electricity prices have soared 29.4%, 50% more than overall inflation, rising 13 times faster than the previous 7 years, according to a Wall Street Journal analysis of Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Meanwhile, in those 7 years before Biden took office, electricity prices went up just 5%. News of the increases in electricity came in the wake of March's Consumer Price Index, which showed U.S. inflation rose 3.5% in March. Wednesday's data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that on a monthly basis, the price growth rose 0.4%, primarily driven by shelter and gasoline, which contributed to more than half of the advance. There is no improvement here. We're moving in the wrong direction, said Greg McBride, chief financial analyst for bank rate, told Fox Business. But as you see there, energy prices, and that's specifically electricity prices, up 30%. Now, understand, as we have said before many times, this is not because of an organic problem that we're having. This is not because of a lack of resources that we're having. And this is where the Republican Party, by the way, GOP, do you just want to pay us something for this? We've laid out the path to victory. It's simply saying again, when it comes to electricity and energy prices, the Democrats can't and won't fix the problem because they created the problem. Skyrocketing electricity prices is the goal of the Democratic Party. And this is where we get into playing the golden oldie. Going back to January of 2008 and President Obama talking to the San Francisco Chronicle, and he is extremely blunt about what the goal is of Democrats.
Yep. Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal power plants, natural gas, you name it, whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations.
Now, they're not retrofitting anymore. They're closing down, which was the goal to begin with.
Right.
But the goal was always from the Democrats to skyrocket electricity prices.
Right.
This was the goal. This is not because we don't have the resources.
Right.
This is calculated and has premeditated. That is coming from, let me see, 16 years ago when Obama said that. Was it 16? Yeah. Yeah. It was January 2008.
Yep.
When he said January or February of 2008 when he said that, before he was elected president. And so there you go.
By the way, when they lost a court case, the Obama administration, and one of the spokespersons, I forget who it was at the time, was asked by the media, well, are you sorry that you were defeated in court? Well, no. We still won because these outfits spent billions and billions to retrofit collectively and change their industry. They're not going to spend the money to change it back. We know that. It's part of the play. It's part of the play going on right now with the latest student loan transfer. Well, if we just wipe it off, then the court, if they come back and change it, that means we have to apply all that money back to what they owe, and the court will be hesitant to do that, we believe. So if we just act quickly, by the time the courts get around to it, the effect will still be there. And that's exactly, as you said, what happened to the coal industry. They didn't really have a choice. I mean, until somebody changes it, you've got to change what you're doing, and you're not going to pay the money to bring it all back. Not going to happen. And all of these were choices. All of these were choices. And now we're living with the reality of those choices. Now we're living in a situation where we have plenty of natural gas and oil. Now we're living in a situation where we have plenty of technology, even with the horrible big rigs on the road that they've tried to demonize for decades. Those engines are actually filtering the air these days. It doesn't matter. You need to switch to EVs while still not focusing on tire emissions. Oh, we'll leave that part out, just like we did the ethanol equation. We don't need to include the entire math. It doesn't matter. Once we give them the key to change all of this, changing it back is hard but it can be done. And we have to decide to do that. We have to decide to stop this madness now. And when they're controlling the language, and they thought they were going to get away with it with the social media companies, when they can control every narrative, when they can have you believe, have enough people believe that we're killing the planet, and if we don't change all of this, we're all going to die, and they get away with it. And we pay the price for it. So they limit what kind of energy you can have to heat and cool your home, sustaining life and whatnot. They limit how you can travel, moving about freely. They outlaw behavior as a part of their agenda and punish the American people, not the rich, not corporations, not industries, you. Over and over and over again. And if you vote for them again, you're saying it's okay and you want some more of it. All of it's built on lies. He laid it out then. It has been part of the plan. His plan was carried out over and over again. He didn't need cap and trade legislation. He had a cap and trade pen in the Oval Office, and he used it. And you're seeing this president do the same thing. He's ramping it up, and the next Democrat will do it if we let him. It's stupid. We have a massive amount of wealth in the ground right now. We have cheap and plentiful energy. And you know what? If the private sector comes up with something different, then great. Then put it out there without taxpayer money, and let's see what the demand is. You know how to do it, private sector. You build something that's affordable, makes it efficient, improves people's lives, that people want, that natural demand is there, they're willing to pay for it. When that happens, great. We'll all take a look at it. Until then, we need to stop the outlawing of behavior. We need to stop this madness of crushing an economy over and over again and holding families underwater, not just putting them there. You're holding them there with this kind of behavior at the government level. And it's sad. It's tragic.
I'm just looking at this cover here, and it was Andrew Studiford's column, National Review, The Green Road to Serfdom. Voters will eventually rebel against net zero when the costs hit. Well, the costs are already hitting. We're seeing electricity prices
now.
We're seeing across the board, and as you and I pointed out, that let's not discount how much of the inflation, what part of the inflation is being caused by the government manipulation of markets to make automobiles the second biggest thing that you buy besides a house is an automobile, and the skyrocketing prices there, that when you look at it, how much is that adding to inflation? And it was interesting that one of the analysts said, not only will that add to inflation, and that's why it's just not interest rates are going to get it down, but because of tax increases and the fact of the Democrats and everybody knows we're going to need more money if we're going to keep this kind of spending, which means you've got the only thing really that's going to be acceptable is corporate taxes, because people love playing, the whole class, the class warfare there, and they end up taxing themselves, which will increase inflation even more.
Yep.
It's just, you're in that cycle now, that the cycle of doom. I like that.
Well, it's because it can't be until we decide to fully hit the brakes and say enough. Then all these compounding effects are going to crush.
And the picture I'm looking at in the article too, protest farmers. Government pays farmers to scale down harvest. Net zero insanity. Net zero aims to make farmers extinct. No farmers, no food.
Right.
Because farming causes greenhouse gases.
Right.
And therefore, farming now has to be shut down.
Mm-hmm.
These people are insane. We've been saying this for a long time.
Well, you can't use a gas stove in your kitchen. It's causing harm. All of a sudden, boom. Oh, no, it causes harm.
This is, again, you see a lot of the climate change. This is where I might as well bring Dad back into it again. Mm-hmm. This is where Dad is right. People want to be bull doo-dooed.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. It's like it's pure virtue signaling based on ignorance, based on having no clue as to how things really work.
Well, I equate it to, defense lawyers or, in that setting, in the legal setting, creating the shadow of the doubt, right? Mm-hmm. So you start this, you just repeat it. The natural gas, your natural gas stove. It's causing you harm. And then all of a sudden people start going, does it really cause me harm? The benefit of the doubt in people's minds. There's the break. There's the fissure right there. There's the crack in the surface. And then you keep working at it over and over again and repeat it as if it's fact. And you get to a point where you've got the political support to outlaw behavior. And we've seen it over and over again. Over and over again. And at every turn, look, you crush the energy industry, you crush the healthcare industry because you're trying to get to a point where, well, there's nobody left that wants to do it anymore because the private sector, can't make a profit anymore. I guess the government has to take that. Oh, let's nationalize energy. Let's nationalize healthcare. Let's control all of it. And no, you don't need to be, Ray LaHood back in the day. We're going to coerce you to out of these vehicles.
He said it.
He actually used that word.
Yep.
Transportation Secretary. And I don't care if he called himself a Republican or what party he aligned with. It doesn't matter. He served for a liberal administration, and he was a liberal. And that mindset is radical because it says you don't need to move about freely. You don't really need to move about freely. We'll outlaw all these behaviors, and we'll tell you when it's okay to come out of your cave.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, I did see was looking at a particular thread yesterday on social media, and it was interesting. Somebody asked the question, well, why would they do this? You keep accusing not directed towards us, but someone else who was making the same case that the Democrats can't solve the problems because they created the problems. They can't and won't solve the problems. We've added both. Can't and won't because they created the problems. What you see today is what they want. We had talked about this yesterday when we looked at the inflation numbers that had come out, and you look at it and said, well, the train of thought now is just increasing interest rates isn't going to do it alone, and it's some of the economic I think things that we have brought up that we know lead to inflation, which is we have such a huge amount of interest on the debt now, which is probably going to be $1 trillion. The deficit in debt is out of control. Nobody believes the White House numbers. They believe in a couple of years we're going to be seeing $3 trillion deficits. And all of that adds to inflation. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to get interest rates down when you've got to be finding people to buy that debt? You start printing money again, and then there's this inflation insanity cycle that you end up getting into, and to the point where it's like, okay, you've got to look at all these things. Plus, you got to look at the fact that inflation can't get under control because of taxes. And they looked at property taxes because around the country, property taxes went up because people's homes were worth more.
Right.
And so it went up.
Which also has to do with inflation and
right.
The cost of building a home.
And then we've talked about the fact that Democrats are talking about taxing the rich. If they get back in again, what's taxing the rich? Taxing the rich is corporate taxes. That's their favorite one, is corporate taxes, which again is passed on to the consumer, which does what again? Raises inflation.
Yep. Labor inflation, again, passing on the cost of government, minimum wage, and everything else. I mean, it's the insurance required, all the government cost of employing a person for a business. All of that is at such a great rate right now in terms of how fast it's growing. I don't know what if the Fed wanted to do something on interest rates, I don't know what their target rate would have to be now.
Well, remember, we saw that, about a month ago? Well, maybe the target rate should be increased.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well,
the new normal.
It should have been from the beginning. It should have been much higher. The goal should have been to go much higher, but they weren't serious about it. They're not serious about it now. And politically, how do you move?
$866-90 Red Eye. Now's your chance to be the caller. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A fair wage advocacy group is demanding California's new $20 minimum wage law for fast food workers be extended to all sectors to help working class people who are struggling with the state's high cost of living. Fox News had an interview with the president of One Fair Wage to discuss what she described as skyrocketing levels of home insecurity and food insecurity post-pandemic. Fast food workers winning $20 minimum wage was just the beginning. She pointed out the high cost of living in the Golden State, where in some counties an individual would need $40 an hour salary to live comfortably. People are leaving the state or not having children, not having families. These are all the very basics. Oh, my God. I mean, I just can't read this. I just can't read this with a straight face. People are leaving the state or not having children, not having families. These are all the very basics we should be thinking about for humans living in California and needing to survive. So you're saying California's too expensive, make it more expensive. People are leaving California because it's too expensive. Make it more expensive.
40. Why not 50?
We are advocating that California. Look, we live in we live in a country that has 50 states, or is it 57?
Whatever it takes.
And so we believe in state experiments. Try the experiment, California. You've done everything else.
Yeah, right. By the way, just a warning to the current governor of California. If they go up to $20 on all jobs, that means your restaurants, the ones you own, they'll have to go up. That $18.07 that you're paying bartenders is not going to be acceptable. We find it unacceptable anyway.
Right.
How dare you?
If you can pay $18.07, you can pay $18.09.
At least.
But look, $20 an hour is not going to do anything. You know it, I know it. $75 an hour in California, and that will solve all your problems, right? Yeah. That's what Democrats believe.
Yeah.
So go to 75.
Right.
These fast food owners are greedy. Everyone's greedy. Good. Then have the California legislature mandate, forget about 75, $100 an hour. This is California we're talking about.
Right. Come on.
Make it $100 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Eric and I are suggesting that California raise the minimum wage to $100 an hour because we care.
We're the station that cares.
And we've been told that raising the minimum wage doesn't do any damage. So why? Why are these people? Now, this woman here from this labor advocacy group is saying $20 isn't enough and you need 40 or more. Well, then, what are you doing? Just trying to keep yourself employed? Doing it incrementally?
Right.
Is that what this is all about? Well, if we raise the minimum wage, we could raise to $100 tomorrow. It has no effect because that's what liberalism believes. Liberal economics believes minimum wage. I know. I've been doing this show for an awful long time. You've been doing the show for an awful long time. We've been in talk radio for a long time. And every time we hear the corporations are greedy, the corporations are greasy.
Sometimes they're greasy.
Raise it more, raise it
fast
more.
Food.
Raise it more. Well, what are you doing? Just trying to keep your jobs by doing it incrementally each and every year?
Right. Why wouldn't you raise it right away?
Raise it to $100.
Why aren't you trying to help people now?
Right. Why don't you care?
We want to help people later. That's not a good mantra. That's not a good chant.
We're sick and tired of raging against the California machine.
We want justice. When do we want it? Later. No, you want it now. Raise it now.
Raise it because that's what they're saying. If you raise it, it helps people. Then raise it to $100 an hour. By the way, I apologize to our conservative listeners in California.
Listen,
all three of them.
Orange County,
and
Kern County.
Listen,
you know what we're saying, guys.
And a few around San Diego.
Yeah. If we had our way, we would incorporate you into Texas.
Yeah, we would.
Yes.
Yeah. We can't do that, though.
No, unfortunately, we can't. We can't. I'd like to, but we can't.
We'd like to do it through some type of political osmosis, but it's not possible.
It's not. I've been told repeatedly you can't do it.
We really don't mean the $100 because I can hear, you guys shut up. They'll do it. Nah, they never do what we tell them to do. And why won't they raise it to $100 an hour or $75 an hour?
Because it would crush the economy.
Exactly.
That's the reality.
They know that.
$20 for fast food workers is hurting the economy. Yet they're begging for more. And the fact of the matter, too, is that, they start this under the guise of, well, these major fast food corporations, they can afford it. When you talk about fast food, in many cases, they're franchisees, small business owners. Not that they're poor people, not that they're barely breaking even, but they're not the big corporations. But that's what they use as the face of, building the jealousy and envy and all that. You have to do that. And you can choose that, or they did choose that road in California, and that's one way to go. But eventually what happens? The marketplace has to do something. Those business owners have to do a couple of things. They can raise the cost of their goods or services to the point that the market will bear, and or lay people off.
So the president of One Fair Wage, Saru Jayaraman, said this also. Okay, so here it is. She discussed the concerns of massive layoffs or massive job losses.
Okay.
And I had it here, and then I lost it. It skipped past here. Here we go. She discussed these concerns, arguing that such dire predictions have never been borne out in past minimum wage increases. The argument, that is the argument they always make. Every single time the minimum wage goes up, they'll always say it's going to kill business, jobs will be lost. We've never seen that happen. Not in California, not in any other state. It has never happened.
Really?
Said Jeremy, who is also the director of Food Labor Research Center at the University of California, Berkeley. She argued that raising the minimum wage will put more money into workers' pockets, who will in turn spend their extra earnings, stimulating the economy and growing industries. They're back to that.
Keynesian economic. Then why are you only promoting $40 an hour?
Right. That's
why
the point.
aren't you promoting $100 an hour?
She's only promoting 20. She says they need 40 in some places.
Right.
But why isn't she promoting 40, 75, 100? If there's no consequences to it, then what is she trying to do? Protect?
How dare you?
Protect her own island?
If that is true, then there's no way you wouldn't go for $100 an hour.
Right. Now, she's lying.
Through her teeth.
Yeah, she's lying. Of course, increased costs are passed on. There's always an effect for increased costs. And this is, again, another perfect example. You can manipulate an economy. You cannot change economics, how people respond to incentive. You can't. It's impossible. People act in their own their own self-interest.
Right.
That's how it's happened. Well, no, they don't. Yeah, they do. The majority do, and that's what drives everything in economics.
The business has to make profit. It's going to find a way, or it's going to leave.
So I just want to do this again. Here's what she said. This is the argument they always make. Every single time the minimum wage goes up, they always say it's going to kill business, jobs will be lost. We've never seen that happen. Never. Not in California, not in any other state. It has never happened. That's a quote. And you get back to, and this is the argument from 20 years ago that Democrats used to give until the CBO, every time they wanted to raise the minimum wage, said, here's how many jobs will be lost. And it was their own Democrat CBO that was giving them the analysis on it.
Yep.
And they would just ignore it. Okay, we're not going to pay attention to it. So the only reason that she can give is a lie.
Yeah. Right.
Now, if she doesn't believe it's a lie, if she has the courage of her convictions, why would she say many places need $40, but I want to raise it to $20, but there is no negative effect to raising the minimum wage because, as she said, it puts more money into workers' pockets who in turn spend their extra earnings, stimulating the economy and growing industries. So if that is the case, then why are you protecting yourself? And I say this because she can continue to say, okay, it should be $20. Okay, next thing we go for $25. Next thing we go to $30. And she has a job. Her job security, if she's actually believes this is true, her own job security is more important to her than the people that are starving and can't make it in California because of the low minimum wage. She should be advocating for $50 an hour, $75 an hour, $100 an hour. Why isn't she?
Right.
God, this is too easy. We're dealing with children, Eric.
We're dealing with liars. I'm sorry, that's what I call all children, liars. I'm sorry. I have to explain that every time.
Yes, as I've had to admit, even as a child, I was a liar.
Well, I figure if I just cover it all just at once, there might be a few. Eventually, they're going to lie. You know, infants and whatnot. So far, they haven't lied, technically. Sometimes the crying is a bit much. Not sure if it needs to be that loud on a plane. By the way, couples bringing on their emotional support infant, that needs to stop. Just stop.
I see they're going to allow, what airline is it? Said they're going to allow more pets in coach, but it's going to be limited.
Yeah. At least if you call it that, right? Okay. You can bring your pet on. Stop with we need to qualify it. It's an emotional support yak.
Yak.
No.
Emotional.
I'm going to need to sit in the exit row. No.
I only had an animal it was a dog one time, and I didn't know it. I had my headphones on,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, what's wrong? I mean, I could feel a vibration in my seat. I'm like, am I going to be okay? Did I eat too many tacos?
Yeah.
But it's like, and it was
happening.
It was the dog barking beneath me in his little container, just, jumping up and down and hitting the bottom of my seat. And that with the barking was like, I was half asleep going, uh-oh, am I okay? Oh,
yeah.
It was the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully I don't have that. Hopefully I don't have that when I fly later on today.
All right. Yeah.
I want to deal with that.
I mean, if an airline's going to do that and say, hey, we'll allow you to bring your pet on with a proper carrier or whatever. If you're going to approach it that way, that's okay. At least they're not trying to get into the emotional support thing. This is my emotional support bat. I don't need that. That's not the kind of flight I'm looking for.
I need to leach blood.
Yeah, exactly. My emotional support leech.
I have a bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suck on my arm, bat.
Yeah. There you go.
Pull some blood.
Right.
866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, but that labor leader protecting her turf. All right? I believe that minimum wage increases have no effects whatsoever. I'm calling for $20 everywhere, but it should be $40 in many areas. Well, then if it has no effect, if the effect is totally positive, think about this. If the effect was totally positive, for example, if you raise a minimum wage in California to $50, and as she said, well, okay, then people have more money to spend, and then the economy will boom because they have more money to spend. Well, then the minimum wage would be $1 million an hour.
Right?
Why isn't it?
Make it happen.
Because she's lying.
And she knows she's lying.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hi. It's like you woke me up by saying good morning. What?
That's why I laughed.
Oh,
It's like,
what?
I'm
Are we
here.
on? Where am I? What is it? Where's my coffee?
All right, you want more?
All right, what do you got?
We talked last week, I think it was, or the week before. I'm losing track of days these days.
Yeah.
But we've always found it interesting in our society how the things in society that really, 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 really we hold to accountability, and that would be the private sector.
Yeah.
And the private sector that provides all of the wealth that is necessary for every charity to be funded in the United States. If you don't have the private sector, you have nothing.
Right.
When was Obama said, right? You didn't build that.
You didn't build that, and then he points to that for all the businesses. You didn't build that. The roads and the bridges that the government builds got people to your business, and we that night came in and said, "Whoa, let's break that down." That funding for the roads and bridges does not happen without private sector profit. Period. We built both.
And so it was things like that where we said, this is the smartest guy in the world. This is the smartest president we've ever had that doesn't understand these basic, simple concepts at all, that is completely clueless on how economics works. The government provides nothing.
Yeah.
The private sector provides everything. The government is simply the middle person.
The conduit, yeah.
Like that? All right, we'll use conduit.
Yeah.
Is simply the conduit.
Sometimes agitator.
The government is the cost of doing business. It's supposed to be the cost of doing business to provide, especially on the national level, just very basic things like protection.
Well, it's like think of the mob. They walk into business. Hey, it looks like you could use some protection, so you got to give us our cut.
Well, I meant more military.
Yeah,
and maybe national disasters that a state can't handle.
Mm-hmm.
But the federal government's way too involved in everything, and it's the furthest government away from us.
That's where it becomes more mob-like.
And
their hands are in everything.
And that's why we've always said that it should be, if you want a lot of things done, it should be local.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one of the reasons why more should be done locally and in the private sector, because this could not be allowed in the private sector. Let's find out if anybody's held accountable for this. California GOP leaders are calling for more accountability after an audit released earlier this week indicated that the state spent $24 billion to tackle the homeless crisis over the past 5 years, but did not consistently track whether the huge outlay of public funds did anything to actually improve the problem. The state auditor's report found that despite roughly $24 billion spent on homeless and housing programs for the last 5 years, the problem didn't improve in most of the cities, according to the state auditor's report. Among other things, the report found that California Interagency Council on Homelessness, which is responsible for coordinating agencies and allocating resources for homeless programs, stopped tracking whether the programs were working in 2021. Yeah. Just said, give us some money.
Yeah, why try? Yeah.
It also failed to collect and evaluate outcome data for these programs due to a lack of a consistent method, the audit found. California Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher laid the blame squarely on the Newsom administration. This is standard Gavin Newsom. Make a splashy announcement, waste a bunch of taxpayer money, and completely fail to deliver, Gallagher said in a statement. The people of California are tired of the homeless crisis, and they're even more tired of Gavin's excuses. We need results, period, full stop. Republican State Senator Roger Niello has called the audit troubling, but told Fox News he wasn't terribly surprised. One issue that I had with the audit was that the focus was mostly on housing and shelter issues, which is certainly important, but really very little about actual results, getting people out of homelessness, not just into a shelter. That's sort of half the job, maybe not even quite half the job. And so that was a little bit of disappointment. Democratic State Senator Dave Cortez, who requested the audit last year after touring a large homeless encampment in San Jose, said the audit highlights the need for improved data and greater transparency at both state and local levels. You couldn't spend $25 billion in the private sector like this and get zero results without somebody being held accountable for it.
No, No, you could not. And yet it continues. I mean, this is just one example. By the way, it's a good example because it's, the liberal mindset. We're going to take this money and we're going to help people. You're not even tracking to see if it's actually helping. You're not even looking into whether or not it's helping, which is proof that you don't actually care about the problem. You only politically want people to think you care about the problem.
Yeah, this is virtue signaling.
Yep.
At its best.
Yep.
We've got the money allocated. Good.
We've spent more money on the home. Yeah, but what did you do about it? What did you actually get done?
Right. What was the results of it? Well, we don't keep track of that.
And they're going to have their right.
We don't
exactly.
keep track
well,
of it.
Well, it's you get the AI answer. Well, it's being able to track how the money is used and the effects of it is a fluid thing because it's a transient population. It's homelessness is transitory. It's all these answers in order to get to the next stage, which is what? We need more money for the homeless problem. It's spending, and zero accountability. How many businesses would last one day for that kind of bookkeeping?
Well, I want to give an example because there's a charity that I'm involved in, and I give to it. And I don't like mentioning, stuff like that because it's sometimes can come across as self-serving, and that's not the point. But the point is, there is a charity which is not just a homeless shelter, but what they do is their goal is to get people who truly want to rehabilitate themselves from their situation and put them on the street. And I'm telling you right now, because I get phone calls all the time from the directors, the president of it, the group, wanting me to know exactly what their success rate is and who their successes have been. Mm-hmm. Now, I will look at it, and I know that when you're dealing with this, you're not going to have all successes if you're dealing with addiction, whatever.
Right.
But I believe in their goal, and they are transparent enough to me on a consistent basis to let me know these are people moving through the systems. And in fact, hey, we're having a special luncheon. Come out. You can meet these people. You can talk to these people. You can hear their stories. We want you to know what's, going on. And they're very, very open. And I haven't, for a couple of years now, wanted me to take a tour. I've just been too busy, but I really want to do it. But I believe in the mission, not because of the money going in. The amount of money going in is not my major concern. It's the results coming out of it. Are you creating? That's what I want to be involved in. When I look at government or charities or whatever,
right.
I want to see the results before I'm going to participate or donate. I want to know that the money isn't just being burned.
Well, that's how modern philanthropy is working, and it changed a long time ago, where there is those donors, most donors are now looking for that kind of accountability. I want to know that my money is going to help in the best way possible. I want to know that my money's going as far as it can to help as many people as it can. And there is that. You have to, and having served on the board for a number of nonprofits, you should be accountable. And I know that, at least in my experience, the board of directors, we would constantly at every meeting, it was about accountability. It was about, okay, but what are we doing? Are we serving any of the people that benefit from this? Are they getting the most, and are we serving in the best way for those donors that are supporting us? And how did you encourage more of that. And part of that is that relationship that you talk about, where we do a follow-up and, hey, we want you to know here's where we are. And the thing about the homeless situation is that nobody has the answers. But what you can see is, okay, here are things that have worked, that have made progress. In terms of solving it, no one has a definitive answer. In terms of making progress, of this is what not only donors want, this is not, in this case, taxpayers. It's what communities want. It's what is required also to keep people safe on the street. You have to show, okay, this is, whatever, $24 billion we spend this, and all of a sudden we decide to turn our backs and not look to see if it's working. In a nonprofit situation or private sector situation, either one, it would be, okay, at the next meeting, let's take a look at these measurements we took with these funds, and let's find what progress we made. And you'll hear it in meetings where one person on the board will say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. And that kind of back and forth gets to the point of solutions. When there is no accountability, whether it's state or federal dollars being spent on programs like this, and you're just going to throw the money into the room and then just close the door and turn the light off, well, then expect zero results. And that doesn't serve the taxpayer. That doesn't serve the homeless. That doesn't serve anything except politically. It serves those who pushed for that money.
Well, the mission statement of this charity that I work with is, they know they can't save everybody, and they know that if you're a massive drug addict, you're never going to complete their program. And their point is that, here's the job that we can do. There is a niche out there of people that are homeless that really don't wish to be homeless anymore.
That's the progress we can do.
And this is a progress we can do, and we can put these people who, because of a number of reasons, and sometimes it is alcohol and drugs, but they've made the commitment to get off it, and they've been successful in doing it. And this is a charity that helps you across the board, not just with one thing, but right. I mean, getting you back in, job counseling, jobs. I mean, because you've got businesses throughout the community that are involved in this, and the community is really backing it, saying, okay, we know that in the homelessness, especially because of the mental illness and drugs, we don't just have the power or the ability to do that, because nobody knows what the solution is to that if you allow people to stay homeless on the street and you can't force them to get help. Right. But there is that niche of people that want more than anything to get out of it, and we can help to cure that hopelessness and make them productive and happy and content human beings. And so the mission statement is out there, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I can't do anything about, but this is where my money would be effective over here. And then they come to me and say, here are the results. Here's what we're doing. Talk to us anytime. Stop by anytime. We want you to see what we're doing. We want you to meet the people and the success stories. We want the people that are in, the middle of it right now for you to talk to them to see how far they're advancing. Well, that's what I want. That's what I think that's what we all want.
Right.
And, that's why you've got, the charities out there when you look at how much goes to advertising and
administrative costs.
Right. Administrative. Right.
The cause itself. Yeah.
The administrative costs, and they're rated by that.
Right.
But the government here, when you see this in California, $24 billion, we really have no idea if it did any good, but we don't see any decrease in homelessness. So we can't say that the $24 billion worked. But then again, we stopped monitoring it anyway, whether the money was working or not. My God. I don't know. If that's a private charity, does somebody end up in jail? Because where'd the money go?
Yeah, I think it's quite possible. Yeah. Because there are laws that govern nonprofits. And it's quite possible. If there's no accountability. And this is what we ask for as a society. When we give to a nonprofit, it's because we want to see that change. And people will say, well, you're just trying to make yourself feel better about something. Actually, in most cases, with few exceptions, people want to help that cause, whatever that cause is.
If I give money and I see somebody who had no hope, who has hope, I'm going to be happy.
Yep, that's icing on the cake.
That is not an immoral mindset to have.
Nope. It works for everybody, hopefully.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I'm reading some of the headlines here that we'll get to. Convention clash, anti-Israel protesters. Oh, okay, we have to rephrase that. Pro-terrorist protesters demand Chicago mayor let them rally within sight and sound of the DNC.
Yeah.
What a mess that's going to be.
Well, and how do you... You're not going to keep them from being inside. You're not going to keep them under protest signs down the street a few blocks. That's not going to happen. You know, when it comes to the radicals, they're going to be right there. The radicals are in the party. And they have to abide by what the other radicals want them to do. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, I can't wait.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric and I just got into a discussion completely off anything. We'll get back to everything we've been talking about, but I had just seen the article. Well, I'd seen it on social media. And it was an announcement from the band Guess Who that they were no longer performing because of copyright stuff. And I went, oh, wow. Now, anybody who doesn't know it, Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings have not been in Guess Who for the longest time.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm just reading this here, and it's fascinating. Burton Cummings, a founding singer and songwriter of the Guess Who, has taken an extraordinary measure to stop the band's current form from performing his songs. In October, Cummings, along with original guitarist Randy Bachman, filed a lawsuit to stop the current version of the Guess Who to stop performing under that moniker. At the same time, it was the latest chapter in a dispute that stretched over a decade, with Cummings and Bachman fighting with bassist Jim Cale and drummer Gary Peterson over the band's name. Though the lawsuit is still going on, Cummings has opted to terminate certain rights agreements on his songs to stop the Guess Who from performing them in concert. It's a complex strategy that breaks down something like this. Virtually every venue in the country has an agreement with performing rights organizations. These organizations collect royalties on behalf of songwriters whenever their work is performed. By ending the agreement pertaining to his songs, Cummings has made it impossible for the current version of Guess Who to perform the material in any of those aligned arenas. Wow. Yeah. I'm willing to do anything to stop the fake band they're taking. I'm willing to do anything to stop the fake band. They're taking Bachman and My Life Story and pretending it's theirs. They're not the people who made the records, and they shouldn't act like they did. Now, this doesn't stop this cover band from playing their shows. It just stops them from playing the songs I wrote. If the songs are performed by the fake Guess Who, they will be sued for every occurrence.
Yeah.
Just fascinating, because that's been going on for a while. And if you're old men like us, I mean, the Guess Who is Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
without,
the essence of the group. Right?
Yeah, without question. I mean, it's you don't have the Guess Who without a Burton Cummings,
right?
One of the greatest rock. I was reading that story to you just about the copyright and everything else, and you just started talking about your love for the Guess Who.
Oh, yeah.
And you hit the particular songs, and what a great. And we had never talked about this before. We never talked about Burton Cummings, who I think is probably one of the great rock voices ever.
It was if someone asked me, okay, if you're going to be a rock vocalist, which voice would you want to have? And it would be Burton Cummings. Because for me, it was artists, there were Gladys Knight, Janis Joplin, Robert Plant, Sammy Hagar. There were certain screamers.
I'll even say John Fogerty.
John Fogerty.
With
yeah,
CCR.
Yeah. Because they could do melodic stuff and still do the belting out and screaming of rock and roll thing.
Without being annoying. Burton Cummings was never annoying when he went loud. It was like, whoa.
Well, he did the right level of crescendo, which is a great point. And I mentioned the song "No Time" by the Guess Who, which I think is one of the greatest rock vocal performances ever, in my opinion. And that was what I always was attracted to. That kind of but they don't sound they're not conventional, but they can do the ballad. She's Come Undone is one of these ballads that, in the lyrics and the spirit of the song, is this sadness and but yet the band brings this power to it, kind of like a power ballad, in a way. And Burton Cummings is the big part of that, and the way that Randy Bachman, just. The writing, the playing, and everything else, you're building the machine, which I think is the sign of a great guitarist. And he's, arguably one of the greatest. And I can see that. Look, your legacy is everything now. And, you want to protect that. You've got to go out of your way to protect it. And there's a ton of lawsuits that go on between bands all the time, and a lot of it has to do with the money, but really at the end of it all, it is the legacy. Because I could understand them saying, look, they pay royalties as a cover band essentially, but because Peterson, the drummer, was really the only original member left in that nostalgia band. And no offense to drummers, but the sound of the band is more than just the drummer.
Well, except for Rush.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
I'm
And so when you look at that, though, that would be, look, you need to, because you're kind of taking this on and trying to make it your legacy. It's our legacy, to be clear. That's one of the things, with a number of groups along the way. These are best-selling artists like the Eagles with Glenn Frey and Don Henley, and they were pretty clear, look, we're the Eagles. It's us two. We created the songs. And then everyone else, they're part of the band, but, we're the essence of the Eagles. And, I guess you could have that discussion there is, there's, I don't know, a number of lawsuits that have happened between former members of Journey and the current lineup. And, which has nothing to do with the vocalist, by the way. But you look at those things and you say quite often, all right, it's a huge, huge business. Journey still tours and does great shows, and Arnel Pineda will tell you, nope, Steve Perry was the voice of the band, and I'm up here, I'm having fun, I'm grateful for my time up here, and he belts it out and he gets it done.
I've got to tell you this.
But it's a huge business.
This goes back a couple of years, and in a conversation with my buddy Jerry, who lives in Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I visit them once a year, maybe twice a year coming up as we get older,
Yeah.
because he's been a friend of mine since we worked at the bank. And I've told so many stories about Jerry, how I got that club DJing job one time because he bought shots for everybody, multiple shots for everybody in the place, and my tryout was tremendous because he told them, all right, I bought you 5 shots each. Now everybody in the bar go crazy. And they hired me, and they said, you're one of the finest DJs ever. And I went up to Jerry, and I said, they said I'm one of the best DJs ever. And he goes, because you owe me $100. I bought shots for everybody that's in here,
right,
and told them when my buddy goes up, go crazy for an hour.
Right.
So they just followed my instructions. Like, oh, man. But we were having a discussion one night, visiting. It's probably, 1, 2 in the morning, maybe 1 or 2 adult beverages in there.
Yeah.
And we start talking about what it must be like for Steve Perry. And I don't know why, but we found it the funniest thing ever. What must it be in life to find out that somebody can do better than you what you do, which is tied to your identity. Like if another guy came in and sounded just like me, or another guy came in and sounded just like you, and people said, well, he's a better Geary than you were.
Yeah, right.
He's a better Eric than you were.
Yeah.
And we just, I don't know why, but we found that just hilarious. Like, wow, that must really do something to your ego.
Well, because when you think about these vocalists, it's not easy as they age. Your body is your instrument.
Yeah, it's true.
And you can't hit that range. And there are a number of vocalists that have come in and said, okay, look, I'm not going to try and push it. I'm going to change the range in which I'm singing now in live shows. We're going to redo the songs a little bit. Sometimes they'll just drop, to a different key or whatever. But it can't be sustained at that kind of arena rock level. It's rare that a vocalist that is belting it out every night is going to be able to do that year after year after year.
Friend of mine last week went and saw with the girlfriend Madonna, and said Madonna's losing it.
Yeah,
that you could hear she can't hit the high range anymore.
Yeah,
she goes, it was noticeable.
She's in her 60s now.
Yeah, she goes, it was noticeable. She couldn't do it. She goes, you could hear the mistakes. I went, whoa. But interesting with the concert season coming up, the summer concert season, and you think about it, since we're, it's old, like Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, I'm old. Kansas. No original member is playing with them.
Right.
Any of the nobody.
Yeah.
In fact, anybody on stage you look at was not with the band in the beginning, and they had a solid band in the beginning. I mean, they were all together for that period of time. There's nobody in Kansas left, yet they're touring as Kansas.
Right.
Now, the drummer, I think, had a heart attack or something. He's going to be back, but who knows? But somebody else is filling in for him. And who's Skinnerd.
Yeah, right.
No original members left in Skinnerd. None of the songwriters or the people that put everything together. Everybody's dead. I mean, Johnny Van Zandt, of course, is Ronnie Van Zandt's brother.
Right.
And what's his name? Medlock.
Yeah, Ricky Medlock.
Ricky Medlock was in the band earlier, but he wasn't an original member and really never contributed to the actual songwriting part of it.
Right.
But there's no member.
It was a very short time. I think he played with them for about a year before he went on to form Blackfoot. So
yeah. Highway Song. Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time.
He's doing some Blackfoot shows, or Ricky Medlock's Blackfoot. Right. That's another thing where it's like, older members of the band are doing something, but the singer's not with them. You know, it's
we're getting old, and we wish to bring back that nostalgia, but I can't go see a Kansas that doesn't have Steve Walsh or what's his name, the other guitarist. Kerry. I can't think of it. He's the one that wrote everything.
Yeah.
Basically. Or not wrote everything, but wrote the majority of the great stuff from Kansas.
And, when Steve Walsh retired, I mean, it was, again, as a vocalist who was belting it out, I mean, his vocal range was unreal, and it was like everybody understood. Yeah. I mean, you're seeing that a lot with artists, and they'll tell you, well, the road, I don't like being on the road all the time. But the ones who are honest will also tell you, I'm 70 or 72 now, and David Coverdale from Whitesnake, he was very clear. He goes, "Look, I'm going to stop doing this at this age because I know that it's just not going to work out." He's still got a great set of pipes. He may not hit all the notes, but he's a guy who has been very clear about, nah. At this point, we're not gonna do any more tours or live shows, and the legacy still lives on. Blah blah blah. But sometimes the idea. I mean, can you imagine that the other? I don't know how many members of Whitesnake along the way there were. They all decided to go on and hire another singer. Well, first of all, you can't do it because it's David Coverdale is Whitesnake. But that's one example. I mean, how many vocalists did they go through after Steve Perry left Journey?
Yeah, vocalists are hard. I did play you because I went to see the former Genesis guitarist Steve Hackett last week.
Yeah.
And I showed you the video, and you're like, wow, he looks really good.
He looks good, yeah.
Yeah, and he's the guitar playing
looks
still
healthy
there.
Unbelievable.
I was thinking Steve Hackett and then a bunch of blues artists are the only ones that can get old.
Well,
if you play guitar, you can get away with it.
If you think about it, because that's, that pace is maintainable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the Rolling Stones do it. It's just, it is what it is. Jagger's voice, though, hasn't changed since he was a kid. It's the same voice. So, and who knows what the lyrics are.
And his face looks the same, too.
He's always looked old. So, and the same with Keith, so they get away with it, and they do great shows. But it's just interesting watching some of the bands that, well, we'll just go on with, okay, this guy was actually in the studio and witnessed the recording, so he's our new drummer. And he's the only guy with
band.
any connection to the original band.
I'm a third cousin.
Exactly.
866-98-RED-I.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll tell you the liberal economist who says, I don't believe the polls. No, people aren't struggling. I'm doing fine, and everybody I know is doing fine. There's no problem. Wow.
Yeah. Out of touch much?
Wow.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
You talk about living in a bubble. Seriously. And that's it. That's the problem with that mindset, is that it requires you to shut the world out, which means you're completely out of touch.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.